I wasn't even supposed to be doing this video today. I wasn't planning to do it till December. As of now, I'm recording this on the day before Thanksgiving. Depending on, I've got homework to get through that I'm going to be doing over Thanksgiving weekend when I'm not at work because my life just sucks that hard. But at some point in time, eventually I will edit this and it will be up before Christmas. That's all I can promise right now. Greetings and welcome to the Fan Perspective. I'm your host Nathan Lyle, and these are the off-season power rankings, not to be confused with the preseason power rankings. The preseason power rankings will include any trades, any free agent moves, any hirings and firings of the coaching staff or whatever. But the off-season power rankings, I'm ranking how well I think each team is going to do based completely off of what I saw last year. Completely 100% everything that happened last season. So we'll start off with number 12, which is, unfortunately, my favorite team in the league. San Antonio Silver Stars. They're my team, but I'm not really expecting much this season. Good news is Becky Hammond and Sophia Young are expected back, but I'm not sure how much of a boost that's going to be. Don't get me wrong, they've got a lot of great playmakers. Jane Appel's a great defensive anchor. D.A. and D-Rob, they had an amazing season last year. Becky Hammond and Sophia Young, they're expected back this season. But at the same time, I just think even though they've got a great core, they've got an amazing head coach, the talent level in this league is incredibly high, and especially in the Western Conference. Based on the way they've been playing not only last season, but even the seasons before that, when they did have a full healthy roster, just doesn't seem like that scary a team. And even though I hope to God they prove me wrong, I kind of expect them to finish in the basement. Next up, we have the New York Liberty. Last season was just so disappointing. Yes, you have the injury to Ashton Carson. You've got obviously some issues with chemistry and stuff like that. But still, there were a few spurts here and there where they seemed like a great team. But for the majority of the season, they weren't very respectable. I have a lot of respect for Bill Lambier, and they could easily move up the rankings after the trades or whatever, just depending on what other teams do, who stays, who doesn't, or just how their workouts are going. I don't know. It's not that they're not a great team. I just think that when you consider the amount of talent in the league, they just don't stack up right now. And like I said, this entire thing is based purely on how they played last season. Next up, you've got the Washington Mystics. They've got a lot of young, talented playmakers. They surprised a lot of people. They did suffer through a few injuries, not a lot of major ones like what you had with some of these other franchises. They have the league's most winningest head coach ever. That's always a plus. So why do I have them ranked so low? Well, this has more to do with level of competition. They shocked me because I expected them to finish dead last year and they made the playoffs, but they didn't necessarily impress me per se. I gained a certain amount of respect for them, but then again, for pretty much as long as I've been watching the league, the Mystics have sucked. So, it wasn't too hard for me to get more respect because they actually made the playoffs and they actually have players worth talking about on their roster now. So for that reason alone, I can't just jump them up to the top. Would I be shocked if they made the playoffs this year? No. They proved last year that they are capable of doing it. But then again, last year the Eastern Conference was very weak, and I'm kind of hoping that it's better this year. I can't promise it will be. I'm just hoping that it's a stronger conference this year. Next up, the Connecticut Sun. The Connecticut Sun. They lost two major stars in the offseason, and those two didn't play at all. Tina Charles had the entire load on her shoulder, and she didn't struggle. She did what she needed to, but she barely had help around her, and so the team as a whole, their performance wasn't that great. But I think with a full healthy roster, they've got a hell of a head coach. Connecticut should be able to possibly fight its way into playoff contention. They're kind of right on the edge for me. Like I said, Washington's a great team. New York, I have a great respect respect for WNBA. Any of these three teams, it kind of feels like a toss-up between them, and it's just kind of wait and see what happens. Injuries, chemistry, things. There's a lot that goes into it, and this is just as of right now. Just because, one, I do have a lot of respect for Team of Charles, and it wasn't. And last year they had the injuries, but the year before that they were number one in the East. Were one of the top teams in the league, had a legitimate chance of winning it all. So I'm wary of putting them at the very last, but I'm not necessarily saying they're the best either. I mean, I only have them ranked number 9. Next up, the Atlanta Dream. Yes, we've stuck in the Eastern Conference for like 4 straight teams because the East is kind of weak compared to the West, at least so from what I've seen in the past few seasons. Let's be honest, the Fever won the title 2 seasons ago, but other than that, the West has basically dominated. Atlanta, they got to the finals again for the second time in 3 years. Where they were once again swept for the second time in 3 years. They get points because it was the Lynx, and they are just the best team in the league. They definitely get a boost. I have more respect for them this season. Angel McCoughtry showed a much higher level of maturity. She showed better leadership both on and off the court. Much better decision making. She got her other players involved. They've got a good core player between McCoughtry, D'Souza. Little missed a lot of time in the second half of the season. So that definitely hurt them. I think they're a much better team with her in there, but they've also got a couple of young guards, Hayes and Bentley. They both made a great impact. I expect this team to just keep getting better. At the same time, it's just they faltered. They got off to a 10-1 start, and I expect this season will be more like that. But the second half of the season, they barely won anything. They started 10-1, finished like 16, I believe 16-18. Let me go check on that. Either way, that's after that 10-1 start, they were a horrible team. But I think it'll be more. I think it'll be more towards that first couple of weeks of the season where they're winning more than they're losing. That I expect that them to finish at least above 500 this season. Next up, we have the Tulsa Shock. Even though they're number 7 on this list, it's only 5th in the West, so I'm not really expecting them to make the playoffs this season. Once again, more due to level of competition. They've got the building blocks for a decade of success. This campaign, she had a huge impact, and you could argue that during the second half of the season, she was making a case for MVP. If only they had been winning more. Between her and Gloria Johnson, that's just a very hard to defend post duo. They bring a lot of energy both on offense and defense. They've got a lot of young guards. Diggins, Williams. We remember her big day. 51 points in one game. That's no chump change. Diggins was a 3rd overall pick. We're still hoping for more from her. She didn't necessarily have the best rookie season, but she was a rookie playing for a team that's kind of still transitioning to a certain point. I think they've got a good blueprint. They've got the talent. They just need to make it all work together. And so really their success depends more on how well they mesh together. But I do have a lot of respect for the team. There is a lot of athleticism on this roster. Next we have the Phoenix Mercury, and this is actually the reason why I made this video, because they already made some off-season moves, so I decided to go ahead and make this before anything else changed, though it might not be up before anything else changes. Last season, the Phoenix Mercury fired Coach Gaines halfway through the season. If you recall him, they actually kind of won a title or two with him. They've still got Diana Taurasi, and there were times where Brittany Griner definitely looked great. She had a game winner in the playoffs against Los Angeles. She had those 2 dunks in the season opener, the first game of her career. So there's definitely a high level of talent. You've still got Penny Taylor. She was suffering through a lot of injuries last year. DeWanna Bonner, she's still an amazing playmaker. A full, healthy Phoenix roster is definitely title contenders every season. I mean, just Diana Taurasi alone, that makes them good title contenders. This full complement of players, that's definitely good. Originally they were a little higher on the list, but then I found out that Russ, he quit to go back to college, and now they've hired Brondello. I'm not necessarily saying that Russ is better than Vandella. I'm just saying that with Russ, at least we knew that it fit. He had a system that they played very well in. They had a very good second half of the season. They won a playoff series under him. And now they brought Vandello in to be the head coach. And I don't hate her by any means. I just don't have a high level of admiration. She has very limited experience as a head coach. She's played the game. She's been in the league for years as an assistant coach. She had one season as a head coach of the Silver Stars. I like her. I just don't know if I'm not saying she makes the team worse. I just don't know if she makes them better. I need to see more of her before I make up my decision. Are the players gonna fit well in whatever system she wants them to run? She says she wants them to play tough, but that can really mean anything. Every coach says that. And people have different ideas of what toughness means. Next up, we have the Chicago Sky. They have last season's Rookie of the Year, Elena Delle Donne, and they have the Defensive Player of the Year, Sylvia Fowles. They had the top record in the East. They won 20 games, and they got swept in the first round by the Fever. That can be just a lack of experience in that particular area. Everyone knows playoffs come around. It gets a little tougher. I fully expect them to be one of the top two teams in the East again. I would not be shocked if they had the top record overall. I would be shocked if they were third or less. They've got plenty of talent on their roster, obviously. All five of their starters have been to at least one All-Star game. Swin Cash, she was with the Storm when they won their championships. They've got plenty of talent on that roster. There is a certain amount of inexperience, like I said, in the playoff area. But if you just get there in the first place, everybody has a legitimate shot. The Fever just matched up very well against them. Next up, you have the Seattle Storm. They made it to the playoffs where they got swept by the Lynx, but that was without Sue Bird and Lauren Jackson. Both of them missed the entire season, did not dress out for a single game, and no one even thought that they'd be in the fight. I personally had them finishing 12th at my power poll at the preseason, and yet they end up still making the playoffs behind Tina Thompson and a bunch of nobodies. I'm sorry, they're not nobodies. I shouldn't have said that. I just can't think of a better word at the time. But they were a bunch of very relative unknowns. Like, I had no idea who Noelle Quinn was at the beginning of the season. She had a pretty decent year. Tina Thompson is gone, but Bird and Jackson are expected back. They've still got Brian Aguilar as the head coach, as far as I'm aware. And so, this is a team that you definitely expect to make the playoffs just because, well, they've been there 10 years in a row. It's kind of hard to dump them at this point. The way that, as things stand right now, their roster played pretty great last season. Great on defense. Bird and Jackson should definitely help with their offensive woes that they have. And I expect them to be one of the top 3 teams in the West. One of the top 5 in the league. Next up, we have the Indiana Fever. And I put them here mostly just because they were so injured last season, and yet they still almost had a shot at the title. Tamika Catchings, Hall of Famer. Katie Douglas, potential Hall of Famer who missed basically the entire season because of back problems. Age, you could consider that an issue among some of their players, but not only do they have a great core of veterans, but they've got a lot of very young players. Alana Larkin, Savante Zealous. These players are stepping up. They're doing great. Clarendon, she didn't get a lot of time last year either. I just think that this team is going to do so much better than they did last season. They did win a title 2 years ago, and this season, I don't know. Did they have like 2 or 3 players that were actually there for every game this year? With a full healthy roster, they're a much stronger team. Everyone is. The news is, so many of their bench players got extended minutes and got a lot of major playing time, and so their experience level went up a little bit. Next up at that number 2 spot, we have the Los Angeles Sparks. They are an amazing team. Candace Parker, 2-time MVP. She's done everything but win in the playoffs. Will that change this year? I don't know, but I do know that during the regular season, between Candace and Nneka, not to mention Toliver Beard, they've got too much talent on this roster, and I don't really think there's going to be any fall off from last year to this one. I still expect them to be a 20-win team at the very least, and to be at the very top, not only of the West but the league. And if it wasn't obvious by the fact that I have them ranked number 2, there is only one team that I consider better than them, and there is a damn good reason for that. It has nothing to do with the Sparks. It has to do with the fact that the number 1 team is the Lynx. The Minnesota Lynx. They won the championship last season. They've been to the finals 3 years in a row. 3. That's not an easy feat for anybody to accomplish. This is a very competitive league. They won it 2011, 2013. They won the finals in 2011 and 2013. 2012, they were in the finals. They lost to a very strong Fever team, Hall of Famer Tamika Catching. The Lynx have a lot of excuses for why they should lose, but they're not losing. I mean, they just keep finding ways to win. Simone Augustus and Maya Moore have both been finals MVPs. Lindsay Whalen at times last season, people were considering her for league MVP. Monica Wright, she's done a great job last season as well, filling in for Augustus when she was injured. Monica, she had a lot of huge days. You got Rebecca Brunson, an amazing defensive player. You got Janelle McCarville, who excels in so many different areas, one of the best passing centers in the league. Just a great all-around player. I have too much respect for this team. I would not be shocked to see them go to the finals again. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. What I'm trying to say is the Lynx have earned their spot at the top of the league. And for me to rank them anything less than first place would be an atrocity as of this moment. But every season brings new challenges, and all I'm saying, this is a challenge to every team in the league. If you want to be number 1, if you want your team to be number 1 as a fan, you can't really complain. You just have to hope that they play well enough to beat the Lynx, because if the Lynx keep winning championships, they're going to keep being number 1.